We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, it is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things, and there were some good things to come out of it. And that is about properly acknowledging your past.
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation. Transportation.
Yeah.
There was so much that we brought to communities. But that is...
But you see, you're typical of what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying that colonisation, the empire was wrong. It was wrong, full stop. That's, the things that Britain might have done.
But that's very much through your modern sensibilities, you might say that, because we wouldn't now routinely go into other countries.
It was a profoundly racist set of basically invasions of other people, where we subjugated people to our rule and have made them work for us. It was
Put yourself in the
made their countries work.
Could imagine yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old boy hearing you say that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What do they then? How do they then carry that through life?
Well,
in terms of who I am as a Brit.
But it's not about...
We had racist ancestors.
Say it,
but Bev,
but I'm saying that we hear much more of that than we do about the benefits of that period of time.
Well, because I don't think there were benefits. I think that we have to be completely...
Of course there were. So you benefits to us.
I don't think there were.
There were benefits to us.
Those countries did not... Jonathan, those countries...
It absolutely does.
Those countries did not have money. They did not have the creativity. They did not have people in positions of power to do this.
No, they didn't. Countries, they just didn't live like Britain did. It doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different.
So it's okay to live without education, and it's okay to live without a transportation system, is it?
They did have education. It just wasn't our education system. They had language. It wasn't our language.
This cultural
medicine we brought to
precisely what we have.
Yes.
I don't know why we're even...
So some of the comments that I'm going to get on this video are exactly the same types of comments that are on that video. And that is how the Moors came in, and for 700 years, they ruled the Iberian Peninsula and the Italian Peninsula. They brought universities, they taught them how to bathe, they taught them hygiene, they taught the Europeans all these different things that they then took and utilized and went and colonized other people. And as if to justify it, should not those people, the Europeans, then should be happy that they were colonized by the Moors then, right? No. They shouldn't. And neither should the people in any other part of the world be happy that they were colonized by Europeans or anybody else. Now, the one lady in the red, the younger lady, you can tell she was saying the benefits that were received were for Britain, for us. She kept saying for us. So she at least is realizing that she has an air of superiority, that it is all for the benefit of herself. And that's why when she was brought up the 13-year-old boy and the university teaching this cultural relativism, she doesn't like that. But the truth is, it's the delusion that the lady with the glasses had, and the fact that they wouldn't let the young man answer. They think that because they came and they taught European standards, European language, European education, European transportation, European whatever, that made those people's lives better. My ancestor was in Africa doing their own thing, living their own lives. Sure, they had wars against other tribes, but they had their own pathways of transportation. They had their own language. They had their own bartering system. They grew their own crops. They did their own thing. They praised their own gods. They were perfectly fine. Nobody said the Europeans' lifestyle was better. For the few ancestors that I have that were in the Americas, they were living in harmony with the land, just like they were in Africa, living in harmony with the land, doing their thing. Didn't have a need to build the things that Europe needed to build in order to survive because the land provided. And yet, Europeans think that they did them a favor by bringing their European ways and dominance and all the turmoil and diseases to those people. No. Even if it's the Japanese colonizing China, it is still not a good thing. Whether it is the Dahomey overcoming the Wayuda, it is not a good thing. The Cherokee overcoming the Creek or the Creek overcoming the Cherokee, it is not a good thing. Anytime when you apply the pressures of who you are onto someone else and try to force them to be like you and to say that you're saving them, you're bringing them forward, it is not a good thing. Oftentimes I hear arguments of people saying that, oh, in the 1500s, The Aztec and Mayan, they weren't even using the wheel yet, or still relatively Stone Age compared to what was going on in Europe and so on and so forth. Why does that matter? Why does the advancement in technology seems to make people think that they are more superior than someone else? It just means that you're technologically more advanced than someone else, but it does not make you superior to someone else. And technological advancements are usually brought upon by a need. And in Europe's case, it was a need that the population outgrew the ability for the land to produce. So they had to sail on ships and trade with other people. So they had to create newer technologies. They encountered more and more people. They fought more and more wars. They had to create new technologies. While the majority of the people everywhere else around the world could live off the land, the Mongols, they had to advance a little bit more so. They couldn't live off the land as much, but they didn't have to go as far as the Europeans. The people in other places, in the Americas, the Aboriginals in Australia, they lived off the land. Didn't need to invent all these things for warfare and for travel, and they didn't need boats to go 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles away. Doesn't make them less than. People are happy doing their own thing, but it is that supremacy, that mentality of supremacy that those ladies want to keep teaching. A 13-year-old boy who learns the truth and learns and understands that there is nothing to gain by colonizing someone else, learns how to be a better person, learns how to be a better citizen of the world so that he doesn't turn into the citizens that they want him to be, one that still continues to oppress people and hold people down. And this type of oppression stems all the way back to the religion that they believe in. When you have a God that says that these are my chosen people and that I will allow them to genocide and destroy other people and take their land and take their animals, take their young women who have not known a child. When you believe in a God that tells you to do things like that, that has demonstrated that in his history, has said that I want all the Canaanites to be genocided, the Pebusites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, and all the other ites, that you are my chosen. And then these people say, oh, we're Christian, we're grafted in, we're grafted in. So now we have the same privileges. Now we have the same rights. Now we're also the chosen. We may not be sitting at the master's table, but even a dog eats the crumbs that fall from his master's table, when Jesus called that woman a dog. So now they feel through that they can do it. This is why Pope Nicholas wrote the papal bull that said that go into Africa and enslave those people and force them to become Christians after you enslave them, but you can maintain them as property. Because Leviticus 25, 44 and 45 says that you can take foreigners of people of a foreign nation and make them into slaves forever and pass them down as property. These are the lessons from the Bible that they utilize. And these were not taken out of context or misused. They did it exactly how the Bible prescribes for them to do it. And even in your New Testament, it tells you, slaves, be good to your masters, just as you would to Jesus. You have Paul convincing a slave and a slave masters to work with each other in brotherly love as Christians, but maintain the slave master relationship. This is why they didn't mind having Christian slaves in America and black people having their own church and the white man running the church and they having both Christian brothers, because the Old Testament talks about people of your own tribe you don't enslave unless you give them a wife and the wife has a baby and you want to stay with the wife and the baby. When your 7 years comes up, then you put your head against a post and they drive it all through your left ear and then you become a slave forever, even though you're from the same tribe. But that's a little exception. But as far as a Christian slave being a slave being to a slave Christian slave master, Paul rectified that and make sure that you can still have that relationship and still maintain slavery. And that's the supremacy mentality that they followed, and they followed it straight from that Bible. And the world has been done dirty because of it. This is why it needs to go. So we need to continue our efforts of deconstructing, detaching our emotions from this religion so that we can truly be free from it. And we need to continue to grow as people so that we can develop into our own sense of being and our value not be placed on whether or not somebody has more technology than the other person or based on somebody's history of who dominated who. Always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, Good vibrations.